I was standing in my childhood kitchen, still holding the dishwasher door open, when my mother dropped the bomb that would change everything. "Jennifer, I know you paid off the $580,000 mortgage," she said, her tone as casual as if she were discussing dinner plans, "but your father and I have decided to gift the house to Braden as his graduation present." I froze. The plate in my hand hovered mid-air. Before I could process what she just said, she added with a bright smile, "Oh, and you're not invited to the party. We are keeping it intimate, just immediate family." The words hit me like a physical blow. 5 years. 5 years of sacrifice, of budgeting every dollar, of saying no to vacations and new cars and a life of my own. 5 years of quietly transferring money each month while my parents lived comfortably, never once acknowledging what I was doing for them. And now this. My father, Gerald, stood by the window, his shoulders slightly hunched, saying nothing. He never did. In 32 years, I'd watched him avoid conflict like it was a contagious disease. Across the kitchen, my Uncle Marshall cleared his throat, a subtle sound that made my mother's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. He was the only person in the room who knew the full truth. The only one who'd insisted, years ago, that we put certain protections in place. I turned slowly toward him, my voice eerily calm. "You want to tell them, or should I?" His eyes met mine, and I saw something there, a mixture of pride and sadness. He gave me the smallest nod. My mother laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "Tell us what?" "Jennifer, don't be dramatic. Braden is finally graduating from state, and after everything we've invested in his education." "Everything you've invested?" I set the plate down carefully, deliberately. "That's interesting." "We're his parents," she said, her voice hardening. "It's our duty to support our children. Some of us understand family loyalty." The implication hung in the air like smoke. I was the ungrateful daughter. The one who'd moved away, built her own life, didn't need them anymore. In my mother's narrative, independence was the same as abandonment. "When's the party?" I asked quietly. "Saturday. But like I said, it's just for." "I heard you." I grabbed my purse from the counter. "I need to go." "Jennifer, don't make this about you," my mother called after me. "Your brother has worked very hard." I stopped at the doorway and looked back at her. At both of them. At the house I'd saved from foreclosure, while they slept peacefully in their beds, oblivious or uncaring about how close they'd come to losing everything. 3 days, I said. "That's all you have." "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't answer. I just walked out, Uncle Marshall following close behind. In the driveway, he touched my arm gently. "You sure about this?" I thought about the locked drawer in my apartment. The folder filled with documents my mother had signed without reading carefully. The trust agreement she dismissed as just paperwork. "I'm done being invisible," I said. 3 days later, my brother's big day turned into something none of them would ever forget. To understand how it came to this, you need to know what my childhood actually looked like, not the version my mother told at church socials, but the reality behind our front door on Maple Ridge Drive. From the outside, we were the picture of middle-class stability. My father worked as an accountant for a manufacturing company. My mother volunteered at the library and hosted book club meetings. We had a dog named Biscuit, a tidy lawn, and neighbors who waved from their porches. Inside was different. My mother, Linda Prescott, operated on a very simple principle. The world existed to validate her version of reality, and anyone who suggested otherwise was either confused or cruel. She wasn't loud about it. She didn't yell or throw things. She was much more surgical than that. When I brought home straight A's in 7th grade, she said, "Well, you've always found school easy. Braden has to work much harder for his grades." When I won a scholarship to college, she told relatives, "We are so relieved. It means we can focus on Braden's education fund." Braden. 3 years younger, charming in that effortless way some people are, and completely untouched by consequence. Failed his driver's test 3 times? Mom called it test anxiety and bought him extra lessons. Caught cheating on a biology exam? The teacher was out to get him. Lost his part-time job for showing up late repeatedly? His manager didn't understand young people. I learned early that asking for help was pointless. When I was 14 and needed supplies for a school project, my mother said money was tight. That same week, Braden got new cleats for a soccer team he'd quit by October. So I started working. Babysitting first, then a cashier job at Fletcher's Market, then waitressing at the diner on Highway 54. By 16, I was paying for my own clothes, my own school supplies, my own everything. Independence wasn't empowering. It was survival. When I graduated high school, I moved 4 hours away to attend college on scholarship. My mother cried at the graduation ceremony, not because she was proud, but because she felt abandoned. "I just thought you'd stay closer to home," she said, making it sound like I was betraying her. I built a life in Riverside. Got my degree in financial planning. Found a good job with a firm downtown. Dated occasionally, though nothing serious. I'd spent too many years watching my father's quiet erasure to trust that kind of surrender. I came home for holidays, kept things cordial, and maintained careful distance. Then, 4 years ago, everything shifted. I'd driven home for Thanksgiving, and the morning after, I was looking for batteries for the TV remote. I opened the kitchen junk drawer, that chaotic space every family has, and found something that made my blood run cold. Envelopes. Dozens of them. Unopened. I pulled them out slowly. Bank notices. Mortgage warnings. Late payment reminders. The dates went back months. Some were marked final notice in red letters that seemed to scream from the paper. My hands shook as I opened one, then another, then another. My parents were drowning. The house, this house where I'd grown up, where my father's father had lived before him, was headed toward foreclosure. They were 4 months behind on payments, with penalties piling up like snow in a blizzard. I found my mother in the living room, watching a cooking show. "Mom, what is this?" She glanced at the envelopes in my hand and her expression went carefully blank. "Oh, those. You're about to lose the house. Your father's handling it." "He's not handling it. You're 4 months behind." She stood up, smoothing her cardigan. "Jennifer, this is really not your concern." "Not my concern? Mom, they're going to foreclose. We have it under control." But they didn't. I could see it in the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, in the defensive set of her shoulders. They were buried, and pride was suffocating them both. That night, I sat in my old bedroom, now my mother's craft room, my childhood carefully erased, and did the math. The mortgage balance was $580,000. The monthly payment was $3,200. With penalties and back payments, they needed almost $15,000 immediately just to get current. I had savings. Not a fortune, but enough. I'd been careful, lived below my means, planned for emergencies. This wasn't the emergency I'd imagined. The next morning, I sat down with both my parents at the kitchen table. "I'll pay off the mortgage," I said. No preamble. No negotiation. My father's head snapped up. "Jennifer, no. We can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling you what's going to happen." I pushed a folder across the table. "But there are conditions." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Conditions?" "Uncle Marshall is an estate attorney. He's drawing up a trust agreement. The house goes into the trust, with specific terms about ownership and transfer rights. You both sign, or I don't pay a cent." "That's not necessary." "It's completely necessary." I kept my voice level. "This protects everyone. You get to keep your home. I make sure my investment is secure. Everyone wins." "Investment?" My mother's voice went sharp. "This is our home, Jennifer. Your father's childhood home. Which you're about to lose. So either we do this properly, or you deal with the bank yourselves." The silence stretched out. My father looked grey. My mother looked furious. Finally, she said, "Fine. Whatever you need us to sign." 2 weeks later, Uncle Marshall arrived with the paperwork. The trust was ironclad. I was designated as the primary financial contributor, which gave me certain authorities over property decisions. Any attempt to transfer or sell required my written consent. My parents retained residency rights for life, but the underlying ownership structure was protected. My mother signed with barely a glance. She was too focused on stopping the foreclosure to read the fine print. That was her first mistake. I paid off the mortgage in full. Wired the money directly to the bank. Watched the balance go to zero. $580,000. Years of my salary, my savings, my future. Gone in an instant. But the house was saved. My mother didn't thank me. Not directly. Instead, she told her friends at church that they'd finally gotten out from under that burden. When my aunt mentioned my help at Easter dinner, my mother said, "Well, family helps family. That's what we do." No acknowledgement. No gratitude. Just absorption. Over the next 5 years, I continued paying the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance costs. When the roof needed replacing, I paid. When the furnace died, I paid. Every month, money flowed from my account to that house. And every month, my mother's story evolved. By year 3, she was telling people she'd managed to pay off the mortgage early through smart budgeting. By year 4, I'd vanished from the narrative entirely. Meanwhile, Braden drifted through his 20s like a balloon on a string, floating wherever the wind took him, never quite landing anywhere that required real effort. He started college at State, then dropped out. Finding himself. Worked construction for a while, then quit. Wasn't fulfilling. Moved home, then away, then home again. Each landing cushioned by my parents' wallets and willingness to make excuses. Finally, at 26, he re-enrolled at State. "This time is different," my mother said. "He's really matured." I bit my tongue. Said nothing. Kept paying the bills. Then came the phone call. "Jennifer, wonderful news." My mother's voice was bright. "Braden's graduating in May. We are so proud. He's really turned his life around." "That's great, Mom. We are planning a big celebration. The whole family. We are thinking about his future, too. Setting him up for success." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. Setting him up how? Well, he'll need stability. A place of his own, but nothing he has to worry about financially while he's getting established. "Your father and I have been discussing it, and we think." "Mom, what are you planning?" She'd laughed. "We'll talk when you come for dinner next week. It's better in person." I should have known then. Should have heard the warning in her voice. But I didn't. I just showed up for dinner, opened that dishwasher door, and listened to my life's work get handed away like a party favor. Now, standing in my apartment with Uncle Marshall's documents spread across my coffee table, I understood something crucial. My mother had never seen me as a person. I was a resource. A tool. Something to be used when convenient and dismissed when I'd served my purpose. 3 days until the party. 3 days to make sure they understood exactly what they'd done. The morning after my mother's announcement, I woke up at 5:30 with absolute clarity. The kind that comes when rage burns through confusion and leaves only cold, perfect understanding. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started pulling documents. The trust agreement. Property records. 5 years of bank transfers. Insurance policies. Tax payments. Every receipt, every statement, every piece of evidence that proved one simple fact. I owned that house in everything but name. My phone rang at 7. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. "Jennifer, I think you might have misunderstood yesterday. This isn't about not appreciating what you did. We are very grateful. But Braden needs this opportunity. And frankly, you're already established. You don't need." The message cut off. 3 more calls before noon. All ignored. At 1 o'clock, I drove across town to Uncle Marshall's law office. He was waiting in the small conference room, a pot of tea already steeping on the table. "You look exhausted," he said. "I didn't sleep." Second thoughts. I pulled out my folder and placed it on the table. Not even for a second. Uncle Marshall had been the quiet rebel of the family, my mother's younger brother who'd refused to play by her rules. He'd left Texas, built a successful practice in family law, married a kind man named Patrick, and lived his life on his own terms. My mother tolerated him because cutting him off would look bad, but she'd never forgiven him for being happy without her approval. He was also the only family member who'd ever told me the truth. "Your mother is a narcissist, Jennifer," he'd said years ago, after one particularly brutal Christmas dinner. Clinical level. She won't change. You can't fix her. You can only decide how much of yourself you're willing to lose trying. I hadn't been ready to hear it then. I was ready now. Walk me through it, I said. He opened the trust document. The language is very specific. As the primary financial contributor, which you unquestionably are, you have veto power over any transfer or sale of the property. The clause is here. He pointed. Your parents have residency rights, but they cannot gift, sell, or transfer ownership without your explicit written consent. And if they try? The trust contains remedies. You can assume full legal ownership immediately, require them to vacate, and sue for any damages or losses. Plus, there's this clause. He flipped to page 7. Any attempt to circumvent the trust's terms results in immediate forfeiture of residency rights. Linda signed this without reading it, didn't she? She signed it while complaining that I was being paranoid and making things unnecessarily complicated. Uncle Marshall's smile was grim. I tried to warn her. She dismissed me. I sat back, letting the enormity of it settle over me. So legally, they can't give Braden the house. Legally, you own the house. They just live there. And if I enforce this, they'll be furious. Your mother will paint you as vindictive and cruel. Half the family will believe her. He paused. But you'll be right. And protected. I thought about the dishwasher door still open when I'd walked out yesterday. The casserole my mother had been making for my father's dinner. The comfortable, oblivious life they'd built on my sacrifice. What do I need to do? Uncle Marshall pulled out a second folder. I've already prepared the paperwork. We file a formal objection to any attempted transfer. We notify the county registrar's office that there's a dispute over the property. We send certified letters to your parents informing them that any attempt to proceed will result in immediate legal action. When? I can file tomorrow morning. The letters will arrive Saturday. Saturday. The day of Braden's party. Do it, I said. We spent the next 3 hours going through every detail. Uncle Marshall was thorough, methodical, anticipating every argument my mother might make and every legal loophole she might try to exploit. There were none. The trust was airtight. She's going to fight you, he said finally. Not in court. She'll lose there. But she'll wage a war of reputation. She'll tell everyone you're heartless, that you turned your back on family, that you stole her house. I know. Are you ready for that? I thought about being 14 and asking for project supplies, only to be told money was tight while Braden got new cleats. I thought about working 3 jobs to pay for college, while my parents took out loans for Braden's first failed attempt at state. I thought about 5 years of mortgage payments, never acknowledged, never thanked. I'm ready, I said. That evening, I drove past the house on Maple Ridge Drive. Cars filled the driveway, my father's sensible Toyota, Braden's beat-up Mustang that was somehow always temporary but never replaced, and a rental truck. A rental truck. I parked down the street and watched. Braden emerged carrying boxes, my mother directing him like a general. They were already moving his things in. Already acting as if the house was his. The rage that filled me was clean and cold. I took photos. Documented everything. Then I drove home and made one more phone call. City Property Assessor's Office. Yes, I need to report a potential property ownership dispute and request a hold on any transfer filings. By the time I hung up, the machinery was in motion. Saturday would be chaos. But it would also be justice. That night, I finally listened to my mother's voicemails. 5 of them. Progressing from confused to irritated to angry. The last one, left at 9 p.m., was different. Her voice was sharp, tight with barely controlled fury. Jennifer, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but you need to call me back immediately. This family has done everything for you, and this is how you repay us? By being petty and dramatic? Grow up. Call me. I deleted them all. Tomorrow was Friday. 1 day until the party. 1 day until my brother's celebration became my liberation. Friday morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and a string of text messages that would have been funny if they weren't so predictable. Mom, Jennifer, this is ridiculous. Call me. Mom, your father is very upset. Mom, why are you being so selfish? Brayden, what's your problem? Brayden, Mom said you're trying to ruin my graduation. Mom, I raised you better than this. I made breakfast, ignored them all, and went to work. I had client meetings scheduled, portfolio reviews to complete, and a retirement plan to finalize for a widow who'd spent 40 years watching her husband gamble away their security. She'd finally left him, rebuilt her life, and now sat across from me with cautious hope in her eyes. I just want to make sure no one can take it from me this time, she said. They can't, I promised. This account is in your name only. Protected. Yours. She cried. I understood exactly why. At lunch, Uncle Marshall texted, letters will be delivered by courier at 3 p.m. Brace yourself. At 3:17 p.m., my phone exploded. The call came from a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. You did what? My mother's voice was a shriek, so loud I had to pull the phone from my ear. You filed a legal claim against our house? Against your own family. I enforced the trust agreement you signed, I said calmly, stepping into an empty conference room. The one you didn't bother reading. That was just paperwork. Standard forms. No, Mom. That was a legally binding trust that explicitly states I control any transfer of the property. You can't give Brayden the house. You never could. The silence that followed was electric. You planned this, she finally said. You've been planning this all along. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. Protecting yourself? We're your family. Family doesn't take $500,000 and pretend it never happened. Family doesn't erase the person who saved them. We never asked you to pay that mortgage. My laugh was bitter. You were about to lose your house, Mom. Dad's childhood home. You were 4 months from foreclosure. I saved you, and you accepted that help without a second thought. But the moment it was convenient, you decided I didn't matter. That's not. You're twisting everything. Am I? Then tell me, when were you planning to mention that I paid off the mortgage? At Brayden's party? Were you going to thank me in your speech? Or were you just going to let everyone think you'd done it yourself? Silence. That's what I thought, I said softly. Jennifer. Her voice cracked, and for a moment she sounded smaller. Almost vulnerable. Please. Don't do this. Brayden has worked so hard. He deserves a fresh start. And what did I deserve? A thank you? Basic acknowledgement. You've always been stronger. You didn't need. That's not how family works, Mom. You don't punish people for being strong. You don't exploit them until there's nothing left. If you do this, if you humiliate us tomorrow at his party, I will never forgive you. The threat hung in the air. Once, it would have worked. The fear of her disapproval would have sent me scrambling to smooth things over, to make myself smaller, to disappear. Not anymore. I'll see you tomorrow, I said, and hung up. Within an hour, the extended family weighed in. Aunt Lorraine called to tell me I was breaking your mother's heart. Cousin Wayne texted that I was being dramatic over paperwork. My father's sister, Aunt Pauline, left a voicemail saying I should think about what really matters in life. Only one person called to offer support. How are you holding up? Uncle Marshall asked. I keep waiting to feel guilty, I admitted. But I don't. Is that wrong? It's healthy. Jennifer, you're not doing this to them. You're doing this for you. There's a difference. Mom says she'll never forgive me. Your mother hasn't forgiven anyone who didn't bend to her will in 40 years. That's not about you. I sat in my car in the office parking lot, watching people come and go, living their normal Friday afternoons. Tomorrow's going to be bad, isn't it? Tomorrow's going to be honest, Uncle Marshall said. And honesty is always uncomfortable for people who've been lying to themselves. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to my old college roommate's apartment across town. Natalie opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. Wine or whiskey? She asked. Both. We sat on her balcony, and I told her everything. The mortgage. The trust. Tomorrow's party. She listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, anger, and fierce pride. "You're going through with it?" she finally asked. "Yes." "Good." She raised her glass. "To Jennifer," who finally stopped setting herself on fire to keep other people warm. We drank to that. At midnight, I drove home through empty streets. The city was quiet, peaceful. Tomorrow it would be chaos, but tonight I had clarity. I thought about the girl I'd been at 16, working 3 jobs and believing that if she was just helpful enough, dependable enough, perfect enough, her mother might finally see her. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who understood her worth. Tomorrow, everyone else would understand it too. Saturday morning dawned bright and cloudless, the kind of perfect May day that seemed designed for celebrations. I stood in front of my closet for 10 minutes, choosing my outfit carefully. Not too formal. Not too casual. Nothing that could be interpreted as aggressive or apologetic. I settled on dark jeans and a simple blazer. Armor disguised as business casual. Uncle Marshall picked me up at 11. "Ready?" "No. But let's go anyway." The party started at noon. We arrived at 11:47. Maple Ridge Drive had been transformed. Balloons in Braden's college colors, forest green and gold, lined the mailbox and wrapped around the porch railings. A banner stretched across the garage. "Congratulations, graduate." Tables were set up in the yard, covered in green tablecloths. A rental tent stood in the back, and I could see people already gathering. Cars packed the street. Relatives I hadn't seen in years. Family friends. Neighbors. My mother had gone all out. We parked 2 houses down. I sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. "Last chance to change your mind," Uncle Marshall said gently. "I'm not changing my mind." We walked up the driveway just as my mother emerged from the front door carrying a tray of appetizers. She saw me and froze, her face going through a rapid sequence of expressions. Shock, fury, calculation. "Jennifer," she said, her voice artificially bright. "I didn't expect you. You said I wasn't invited. You didn't say I couldn't come." She set the tray down on the nearest table with a sharp click. "This is not the time." "Where's Braden?" "Inside." "Jennifer, please." I walked past her without waiting for permission. Uncle Marshall followed. Inside, the house was chaos. My father was fumbling with a sound system. Braden stood in the living room wearing a new suit, looking uncomfortable in a way that suggested my mother had chosen it. Several cousins milled around, and my Aunt Lorraine was arranging a photo display. Everyone stopped when I entered. "Hey," Braden said uncertainly. "Mom said you weren't coming." Change of plans. I looked around at the house, my house, decorated for someone else's triumph. "Can we talk?" "Outside." "Now?" "People are arriving." "Now?" Something in my tone made him nod. We walked into the backyard, away from the growing crowd. Uncle Marshall positioned himself near the back door, a silent guardian. "What's going on?" Braden asked. "Mom's been weird all week, and she said something about legal problems." "Did she tell you about the house?" "Yeah," she said. "She said they're giving it to me. For graduation." He looked uncomfortable. I tried to tell her it was too much, but you know how she gets. "Braden, do you know how this house was saved from foreclosure 4 years ago?" He blinked. "What?" "The mortgage. Who paid it off?" I don't know. I figured Mom and Dad." "I did." "I paid off $580,000. I've been paying the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance ever since. This house exists because of my money." His face went pale. "I didn't know that." "No one did. Because Mom decided it didn't fit her story." I kept my voice level. "And now she's trying to gift you something that isn't hers to give." "Jennifer, I swear I didn't. I wouldn't have." "I believe you." And I did. Braden wasn't malicious. He was just soft, shaped by a lifetime of being protected from every consequence. "But it doesn't matter. This isn't about you. It's about her." From the front of the house came the sound of more cars arriving. Voices rising in greeting. So what happens now? Braden asked quietly. Now you watch what happens when someone finally says no to Linda Prescott. At exactly 12:15 p.m., a city vehicle pulled into the driveway. I'd timed it perfectly. Two officials stepped out, a man and a woman, both carrying clipboards and wearing serious expressions. They approached my mother, who was in the middle of greeting Aunt Pauline. The conversation was brief, professional, devastating. From where I stood, I could see my mother's face transform. The gracious hostess mask crumbled, replaced by confusion, then panic. She turned and scanned the crowd, her eyes finding me. The look she gave me could have melted steel. She said something to the officials, who shook their heads. One of them gestured to the house. The other pulled out a document. That's when my mother's voice rose, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is a mistake. This is my house. I've lived here for 30 years. Conversations died. People turned to stare. The female official said something, her tone patient but firm. No. My mother's voice cracked. My daughter is trying to. This is family business. You can't. The official handed her the document. My mother snatched it, her hands shaking as she read. I walked over slowly, Uncle Marshall beside me. What's going on? Aunt Lorraine demanded. Linda, what are they saying? My mother looked up from the paper, her face twisted with rage and something that might have been fear. She filed a property dispute. There's a hold on any ownership transfer. I didn't file a dispute, I said calmly. I enforced the trust agreement. The one you signed 4 years ago when I paid off your mortgage. The silence that followed was absolute. You paid off the mortgage. Aunt Pauline said slowly. $580,000, Uncle Marshall confirmed. Plus 4 years of taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Under the terms of the trust, which I drafted and both Linda and Gerald signed, Jennifer has final authority over any property transfer. This is insane, my mother hissed. Jennifer, call them off. Right now. No. This is Braden's graduation. You're ruining. I'm ruining what? Your party? Your story? Or just your plan to gift away a house you don't actually own? More cars were pulling up. More relatives arriving, walking into a celebration that was rapidly becoming something else entirely. My father finally appeared, looking stricken. Jennifer, please. Can we talk about this inside? We are past talking, Dad. You've had 4 years to acknowledge what I did for you. You chose silence. We were grateful. You accepted $500,000 and never once said thank you. My voice rose despite my best efforts. You let Mom tell everyone she paid it off herself. You watched her erase me from the story of my own sacrifice. And now you want me to be quiet while she gives it all away. That's not fair, my mother said, but her voice was shaking. We never asked you. You were about to lose your home. You were drowning, and I saved you, and the only payment I asked for was basic honesty. I was shaking now, years of swallowed words finally breaking free. But you couldn't even give me that. Because in your mind, I don't get to matter. I'm just the strong one, the capable one, the one who doesn't need anything. Jennifer, my father's voice broke. But before anyone could respond, another vehicle arrived. A tow truck. Braden saw it first. What the? The driver climbed out, checked his clipboard, and approached the Mustang parked in the driveway, Braden's car. Wait, Braden said, rushing forward. What's happening? Repossession order, the driver said, already hooking up the chains. 3 months behind on payments. What? No, Mom, you said you were helping with the payments. My mother's face went white. I thought, Gerald, didn't you? My father just stared at the ground. And that's when I understood. They'd been using the money they saved from the mortgage, money I was now paying, to fund their comfortable life. Dinners out. New furniture. Helping Braden with his expenses. All while letting the car payment slide, confident they could sort it out later. Later had arrived. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the Mustang was loaded onto the truck. Braden stood helpless, his face flushed with humiliation. "This is your fault," my mother said, turning on me. "You did this. You're destroying your own brother." "I didn't miss his car payments," I said quietly. "You did." Uncle Marshall stepped forward, his lawyer voice calm and authoritative. "To be clear, for everyone here, Jennifer has been financially supporting this household for 4 years. She saved this house from foreclosure. Every attempt to deny or minimize that is simply false. The legal documentation is unambiguous." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were pulling out phones, whispering to each other. Aunt Lorraine looked between my mother and me, understanding dawning. "Linda, you told us you'd paid off the mortgage yourself." It was a family effort." "No," I said. "It was me. Just me." "And now she's trying to give it to Braden as a graduation gift, without my permission, in violation of a trust she signed but never bothered to read." The party was disintegrating. People were backing away, uncomfortable with the raw honesty erupting in what should have been a celebration. Some were leaving entirely, muttering excuses about prior commitments. My mother looked around at her audience dissolving, her perfect day collapsing. When she looked back at me, her expression was pure venom. "Get out," she said. "Get out of my house." "Your house?" I pulled out my phone, opened the trust document, and held it up. "According to this, and according to the law, this is my house. You live here at my discretion. Under the terms of this trust, which you violated the moment you tried to transfer ownership, I can revoke your residency rights immediately." "You wouldn't dare." "Try me." We stood facing each other, years of imbalance finally crashing down between us. Uncle Marshall touched my arm gently. "Jennifer, maybe we should." "No." I didn't break eye contact with my mother. "Everyone here needs to understand what happened. She accepted my help. She lived off my sacrifice. And the moment I asked for basic recognition, she tried to cut me out entirely. That's not family. That's exploitation." My mother's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked old, fragile. "You're cruel," she whispered. "I raised you, and you're cruel." "You raised me to disappear," I said. "I'm just done vanishing." I turned and walked away, Uncle Marshall beside me. Behind us, the party fell apart, voices rising, accusations flying, decades of family dysfunction finally breaking into the open. We drove away in silence. 3 blocks from the house, I started shaking so hard I had to pull over. "I just destroyed my family," I said. "No," Uncle Marshall said firmly. "You just stopped letting them destroy you. There's a difference." 3 weeks later, I sat in Uncle Marshall's office reviewing the final documents. My parents had moved out of the house on Maple Ridge Drive. Not because I'd forced them to, though I could have, but because living there became impossible once the truth was out. The looks from neighbors. The whispered conversations at church. The way relatives stopped calling. They'd found a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Smaller. Cheaper. A place that fit the reality of their finances without my support propping them up. Braden had moved in with his girlfriend and gotten a job at a logistics company. Not glamorous, but steady. According to Uncle Marshall, who stayed in contact, he was showing up on time and taking it seriously. "He called me last week," Uncle Marshall said, pouring tea. "Wanted to apologize." "For what?" "Everything. He said he never realized how much you'd done. He's angry at your mother for hiding it." I sat with that for a moment. Is he okay? He's growing up. Finally. Turns out consequences are good teachers. The house was mine now, legally and completely. I'd been going there on weekends, slowly reclaiming the space. Repainting rooms. Replacing furniture. Opening windows that had been closed for years. Last Saturday, I'd stood in my old bedroom, no longer a craft room, and cried. Not from sadness. From relief. "Have you heard from your mother?" Uncle Marshall asked gently. 17 calls in the first week. Then nothing. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. She sent a letter 2 days ago. And I haven't opened it. Are you going to? I don't know. I looked out the window at the city beyond. Part of me wants to know what she has to say, but another part knows it won't change anything. She'll either be apologizing while making excuses, or blaming me for everything. Either way, it won't be honest. You're allowed to leave it closed, Uncle Marshall said. You're allowed to walk away. It doesn't feel like walking away. It feels like cutting off a limb, even a diseased one. Grief for the family you needed but never had. That's normal. It's allowed. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. The family's taking sides, I said finally. Aunt Lorraine called to say I was right, but I could have handled it better. Cousin Wayne won't speak to me. But Aunt Pauline sent flowers with a note that said about damn time. People will choose what makes them comfortable. That's not your responsibility. I keep wondering if I was too harsh. If I should have. Jennifer. Uncle Marshall set down his mug and looked at me seriously. You spent 5 years paying their mortgage. 5 years of silence. 5 years of watching your mother take credit for your sacrifice. And when you asked for the bare minimum, acknowledgement, she tried to give away what you'd saved. You didn't humiliate her. She humiliated herself. Then why do I feel so guilty? Because you were trained to feel guilty for taking up space. For having needs. For existing in a way that wasn't convenient. He leaned forward. That guilt is a scar, not a compass. Don't let it guide you. I thought about that as I drove home that evening. About scars and compasses and the difference between them. The house on Maple Ridge Drive was quiet when I pulled up. No party decorations. No tension. Just a solid, well-built home that I'd saved and now owned. I walked through slowly, room by room. In each space, I could see 2 versions. The house of my childhood, full of silence and careful invisibility, and the house it could become. Lighter. Brighter. Mine. In the kitchen, I found the drawer where I discovered those mortgage notices 4 years ago. I opened it, half expecting to feel something dramatic. Instead, I just felt tired. I made tea, sat at the kitchen table, and finally opened my mother's letter. Jennifer. I've been trying to write this for 2 weeks. I don't know what to say that won't sound like excuses. You were right. About everything. I knew what you'd done for us, and I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge it because acknowledging it meant admitting we'd failed. That we couldn't take care of ourselves. That our daughter had to rescue us. I convinced myself that silence was better than gratitude because gratitude felt like weakness. So I rewrote the story. Made myself the hero. Made you disappear. What I did at Braden's party, trying to give him the house, that wasn't about him. It was about me. About trying to prove I was still in control. Still capable. Still the mother who could give her children what they needed. I never stopped to ask what you needed. I just assumed you didn't need anything because you never asked. But you did ask. You asked for honesty. For recognition. For basic respect. And I couldn't give it to you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to want a relationship with me. I just want you to know that I see now what I couldn't see before. You saved us, and I repaid you with erasure. I'm sorry. It's not enough, but it's true. Mom. I read it 3 times, looking for the deflection, the blame shifting, the subtle ways she might try to make this my fault. It wasn't there. The letter was honest in a way my mother had never been. It didn't change what had happened. Didn't erase 5 years of silence or the humiliation of that party. Didn't repair the fundamental break between us. But it was something. I folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe I wouldn't. Right now, I just needed space. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. I stood in my house, truly mine now, and felt the weight of the past few weeks settle into something manageable. My phone buzzed. Natalie. Still alive? I smiled. Surprisingly, yes. * dinner tomorrow? I want to hear everything. You're buying. * deal. Proud of you, by the way. I set the phone down and looked around the kitchen one more time. For years, I'd believed that loving my family meant sacrificing myself. That strength meant silence. That helping meant disappearing. I understood now that those weren't truths. They were training. Patterns set so early I'd mistaken them for nature. Protecting myself, standing up, speaking out, enforcing boundaries, hadn't destroyed my family. It had revealed what was already broken. And in that revelation, maybe there was room for something real to grow. Or maybe there wasn't. Either way, I was done paying mortgages on relationships that bankrupted my soul. Standing in that kitchen, in that house, in that life I'd saved twice, once with money, once with truth, I finally understood what I should have known all along. You can't build a home in someone else's understanding. You can only build it in your own. And mine, at last, was standing.